conversations with Miss June Allyson, Miss Jane Powell, Miss Ginger Rogers, and Miss Esther Williams.
I have major crushes on all of you, and so I'll try to be dignified. Anyway.
You won't be intimidated by it.
You want to
dance with Ginger, swim with me, sing with
Let's not talk about what I want to do.
What did you want to do?
Let's not talk about that. That's pretty rough. I knew you before you were a virgin. When you were first under contract, because I've heard different stories about this. You did the Aquacade, right? You were that show.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco.
That's where they
with
found
Johnny
me.
Weissmuller, right? And you swam with him 5 times a day, and he made passes at you 27 times a day.
Oh, Johnny. Johnny was such an animal. He thought he was Tarzan. He really thought he was Tarzan. You know how some people really live a role,
Yeah.
and he played it so often.
He was a sweet man. He was very sweet.
And he didn't think he had to talk too much, you know, because Tarzan didn't.
No.
But there was a maneuver he had. We would swim this number together. And I've taught all my leading men in my movies how to do this. It's called tandem swimming. I'm on my back, and they're swimming crawl.
Oh, I know this one. It's very sexy.
Johnny would do that, and then I would get to the end of it, and there was a place under the stage that you had to get, and that's where I swam the fastest I've ever swum in my life, between the last of the spotlight, under the stage to the steps, and try to get up those steps.
Where's the ape man?
But that hand would reach and pull me back. And now the fighting that would go on under the stage, underwater, after that duet swim. And, of course, the orchestra would swell and nobody heard it.
I went to Johnny Weissmuller Jr.'s wedding in San Francisco. He married a debutante.
I met him.
Nice boy. And Ryan O'Neal and I were ushers. And
were you really?
Johnny Weissmuller Sr. we were waiting. We didn't know when he was coming. So the wedding was, in the middle of the wedding, you heard... I used to pride myself on, when I was a young actor, in doing all my own stunts and all that. But you did some things. I mean, I still am. I'm amazed. The one where you were swinging and you went out.
90 feet. I couldn't see where the water was. He didn't tell me about the smoke. And all I see is yellow and orange smoke down there. And I've got to do a half gainer off that,
I know.
Which I had rehearsed, but never with the smoke. I figured, well, there's got to be blue water under there somewhere. If I hit the side, I'll know.
The men that you swam with were friends of mine. In fact, we had 2 of them.
Yes,
here,
you did.
Van Johnson and Ricardo. But when the first time that you touched on...
And Mickey.
And Mickey, too.
You need Howard Keel, and you had a quorum.
The first time... I never put Howard Keel in the water. It was good.
Yeah.
The first time that you swam with Fernando, was it... Because Fernando was this... He was a championship swimmer.
Fernando was
Was that the moment that you said, "Woof, this guy's different than this guy"?
That wasn't why Fernando was different.
No, I understand. But it was one of them.
That just meant he could swim.
I'll get into that later. But that was just one of the reasons. That was one of the reasons you got it. You were impressed with the fact that
it was wonderful, really, because to a swimmer, are you a swimmer?
Right.
And I said to him, I've heard that you're a tremendous swimmer, that you had titles, that you were a national champion. I said, why didn't you tell them that? He said, I don't want to spend my life underwater with a mackerel. He said, I want to do dramatic pictures. I said, start with the mackerel. And I'm in the top 10. So I said, that's okay. I said, I want a good swimmer in a movie for a change. I don't want to keep holding him up when I'm swimming backstroke. One hand here and the other one working. I said, I want you to do the movie. What don't you like about the script? And he said, my part is not big enough. That's how grand he was
Oh,
from day one.
You miss, obviously, we all miss people when they're gone, but when they're gone and they had that kind of humor and that kind of energy, I miss him. I think I miss him more than anybody.
Oh.
I mean, you know how much I loved him.
I know.
And we had such
You
funny,
were cut from
funny
the same
time.
piece of humor, you know,
we had
that
such a good
off-the-wall
time.
humor.
Were you afraid that, well, you weren't afraid, obviously, but were you ever worried about the fact that he was so handsome, he was so
Well, we made a
funny?
deal. We made a deal. He asked me to marry him when we finished making Dangerous when Wet, and I was separated at that time. And he said the funniest thing anybody ever said to me. He said, Liz, let me take you away from all this. I said, MGM,
Yes.
this glorious dressing room we're sitting in, making movies, being treated like a lady every moment of the day, queen, you know. And I said, what are you going to take me away from? And he said, well, I want you to meet the crowned heads of Europe. I said, I've been to Europe. He said, but you haven't met the crowned heads. I said, you don't know any crowned heads. And he said, I will by the time we get married. And I said, no, I tell you what. I've got a little kid, too, and one, and you'll get me over to Europe with all these crowned head parties. And you're going to forget all about the fact I got those kids. Or if I have them with me and they get diarrhea or something, you'll send them home. You won't want to bother. And he said, you have a point. And I said, anyway, don't you have a lot of fooling around to do still? And he said, such an honest question deserves an honest answer. Yes, I do. I said, you'll break my heart. I don't want to ever see you again. And he was so broken-hearted that the next morning in the L.A. Times on the front page, there he was at the Macomba with Arlene Dahl.
You know, Anne Margaret told me that she called you once because she had to do something in the water, and you gave her the secret of the hair.
Baby oil and Vaseline. And then they would just slap, because it was just dreaming to think that I could go. We tried, you know, like this, and I'd dive in the water and it was all down in my face.
Right.
And then they made me like a duck. And I was waterproof all day long.
The famous shot of you coming out of the water, which I think I figured out, with the sparklers on.
Yes.
They reversed the film?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just fabulous. It's a great shot. You know the shot? She comes out of the water. Of course, now I realize that she was dry when she came out, but she came out of the water and the sparklers are all going out of the water. Came out, and it's just a gorgeous shot.
Yeah,
so they
up,
just reversed the
and then they just
film.
take me down again.
Yeah, it's good.
I never heard that.
Well, he was...
Burt Reynolds and guests will return.
Burt Reynolds Conversations with. Sponsored by Dawn Dishwashing Liquid. It takes grease out of your way.
This voice, which I'm in love with, and you can't mistake this voice, you know. Was this from a lot of booze you drank or what? I mean, how did you get this voice? Because, you know, it's Akim Tamaroff doesn't have a voice like that. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Was it like that when you were young?
I always sounded like boy. I sang in the boys' choir.
You did?
Yes.
Well, that was what I
Badly.
was going to ask you. When you started to do the musicals, did they ask you, or did they think about maybe having somebody with a lighter voice? It is strong.
I know. When I went to MGM, they got us all in a room, and we had all come out after having been signed. We'd all done Best Foot Forward, and they bought the play and everybody in it. And I think it was Arthur Freed or Joe Pasternak had us all in this room and said, now tomorrow we're going to start rehearsing, and I want you all to go home and get a good night's sleep, because you're going to work hard and you're all going to be big stars. Except this little girl. Yeah, you stay here. I want to talk to you. I thought, well, maybe I'm going to get a little bit bigger part or something. So they all left, and I stayed there. And he said, I don't want you to worry about a thing. I want you to go home and get right into bed, and I will send my doctor over.
Dr. Blank.
Dr. Blank. And he said, don't worry about a thing. He'll have your voice cleared up overnight. And I said, well, what's wrong with it? He said, well, do you have laryngitis or something? And I said, no. He said, do you always sound like that? I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, don't worry about it. We have a wonderful teacher on the lot, Lillian Burns, who can teach you to speak like a girl. And he did. And he said, you have a wonderful, delightful smile. There's just one thing wrong. When you smile, your eyes disappear. But don't worry about it. We have a wonderful teacher on the lot who can teach you to smile with
Lillian
your eyes
Burns.
open.
They're teaching her everything.
And your everything. And your teeth, they're good teeth. They're a little large. But don't worry about that. We have a wonderful dentist.
Who was on the lot.
On the lot. And I went to all these places. The dentist wouldn't touch me. He said, her teeth are healthy, leave them alone. Lillian could do nothing about my voice. And she couldn't do anything about my eyes either. And finally, they were paying me. You remember how they paid us, whether we worked or not?
40 weeks a year.
40 weeks a year and 6 weeks layoff. And they thought, well, we're paying her, we should put her in something.
Days of old beside the Nile, a famous queen there dwells. Her clothes were few but full of style, her figure slim and svelte. On every man that wandered by, she pulled the seat of Barra, and everyone observed with awe that her work was swift but never raw. I'd be like Cleopatra if I could have my way. Each man she met, she wed and kissed, and she dozens on her waiting list. I wish that I had lived there beside the pyramid. For a girl today don't get the scope that Cleopatra did.
Whose office were you in when you saw the gold bathing suit and Esther was...
Oh, it was in the fitting room.
In the fitting room.
In the designer's room. My beautiful Esther, she was having a fitting.
Yes.
And I was a little early for my fitting. I'm always early. I'm always so afraid to be late.
She got here about 4 o'clock this morning.
Good for her.
And I walked in, and there stood this gorgeous creature on this pedestal, being fitted in the most gorgeous gold lame bathing suit. She looked 9 feet tall, and I looked up at her and I said, oh, Esther, do you think they'll ever design a bathing suit like that for me? And she said, oh, come off it. Whoever heard of a bathing suit with a Peter Pan collar? Oh, that's pretty cute.
Now that your best friend here is here, is it true that she gave you lessons in assertiveness?
I know. People make...
Is it working?
Oh, sir?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, what did she teach you about being assertive?
Well, we've done several cruises together, Esther and I, and I don't assert myself very well, and this upset her very, very much. We were having dinner in the dining room, and I couldn't make up my mind about what I wanted for dinner. And the waiter was standing over my shoulder, and I was holding everybody up. And I said, oh, well, what would you suggest? And he said, the fish. And I said, oh, well, all right. And Esther, finally he left. She said, why did you order fish? I said, I don't know. I hate it. And she said, well, why did you let him do that? I said, I don't know. He wanted me to have the fish, and I wanted him to be happy.
I got to ask you this question, which I wasn't going to, but I'm going to because I have to. The Dick Powell that you fell in love with and married, that was such a gentleman and so smart. Or was he smart? Did you fall in love with him in the movies, or did you meet him? I mean, did you have a crush on him before you met him, or was it something?
Yes, I did.
You had a crush.
Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and Dick Powell.
Oh, that's wonderful, Hale.
Just a minute. That's only if...
I knew you'd take Dad's case.
Oh, only as I say, if My investigations bear me out.
I'm sure they will.
I hope so.
Dinner served.
I certainly hope so, too.
Well, I sure hope so.
I certainly hope so, too.
And the first time you met him, were you assertive?
Oh, heavens no.
No.
I had already done Two Girls and a Sailor, and I had been sent to New York to appear at the Paramount Theater for the opening of Two Girls and a Sailor.
Are you going to make that poor girl live in a tent?
What poor girl?
Your wife.
What wife?
Well, you're going to have one someday, aren't you?
Oh, I hope so, Patsy.
It was after the performance, and then I'd gone back to the hotel, and I'd washed my face and, and put them little pin curls in my hair, and the phone rang. And this voice said, "Hi, this is Dick Powell." And he said, "I just saw your show." And I said, "Oh, well, how are you?" And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to bed." And he said, "Well, I'd like to see you." And I said, "Well, I can't see you now because," he said, "I'm coming right up." And he came up and he said, "Well, why don't you just get dressed and we'll go out to dinner because I'd like to talk to you." So he waited for me to get dressed, and I got dressed, and he took me, I think it was to 21. Scared to death, I was at 21. And he said, "I know this is going to kind of shock you a little bit, but I think you're kind of cute." And then we went together for a a whole year. And he still hadn't asked me to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty rude. Very rude. And one night we were out driving, and I said, "Well, I'd like to know what your intentions are." He said, "My intentions about what?" I said, "About getting married." And he said, "Oh, I don't ever want to get married again. I've been married twice." And I said, "Oh, well, then you may as well take me home, and I don't want to see you anymore." He said, "Okay." Took me home, sent me up to my apartment, and I was crying. Oh, my heart was broken. And I was really sobbing. And he called me, he said, "I just wanted to call you and tell you I got home safely." And I said, "Oh, well, I'm very happy for you." And he said, "Oh, my God, are you crying?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I'll be right back." So he drove all the way back from Toluca Lake, and he came in, and he said, "Well, I guess I'll have to marry you. So we'll get married." And I said, "It's next Wednesday." Okay. So we got married the following Wednesday. I am sitting at a table with three of the most fabulous women, my idol. And it's very hard. I'm not going to cry.
You could cry.
But it's very hard for me to sit here
It's okay
and
to
really, honest to God, realize that I am sitting at the same table with this beautiful, lovely, wonderful woman.
I'm delectable, he's respectable, my love's negotiable, he won't be sociable. I see where we can get along. I start squeezing up, he starts freezing up. I hate to urge a man, he's like a clergyman. I see where we can get along.
This industry is because of Ginger. I saw the gay divorcee 18 times. You taught me how to dance. I wasn't rich enough to go to a dancing school, and I would go and copy everything you did.
Wonderful.
And
You're just natural in a way.
Well, you just made my life, and I remember the first time I met you. She was so dear. I walked right up to her, and I said, "I know who you are, and my name is June Allyson, and I once sent you a letter and asked for a picture, an autographed picture, and you never sent it to me." And she said, "Oh, I'm very sorry, but I'll send you one." And 2 weeks later, in the mail, I received an 11 by 14 picture, which I still have framed in my house. And it says, "To Junie, the girl every man wants to marry, and the girl every woman wants as a friend."
Oh.
I love you,
Hey,
Ginger.
bravo, what a sweet
And I've had that forever, and I thank you again.
You sweetheart. Thank you for remembering that.
I'll never
That
forget
very
it.
touching little story.
Ginger, in Gold Diggers, you sang, "We're in the Money," right?
Right.
But you did it in Pig Latin.
Pig Latin.
And I've always wanted to know why.
Well, I was rehearsing on the stage with the pianist. He was playing. I had to learn my lyrics. And I said to him, could you stay with me for another half hour? Because I want to get it straight. And after I thought I had gotten it absolutely the way I wanted it for the movie, I started to say, Airway in Hey the Anime. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, nothing, I'm just kidding. And as I was doing that, I saw a cigar walk into the room. It was Zanuck. He said, well, do it one more time. So I sang it again for him. He said, that's what you tell Mervyn, who's directing the picture tomorrow, that's the way I want you to do it in the final film. Zoomed in, and they were on my lips as I was singing, Airway in Hey the Anime. Airway in Hey the Anime. Way at gay lad, way stay with and gay lad.
You know the whole thing still?
Oh, sure.
Airway in Hey the Anime. Airway in Hey the Anime. Way at gay lad, way stay with and gay lad well. Airway in Hey the Anime. The ice skates are on his say. Old man, the dash and pray, we are a 3 1 day, say on rail. Whatever they say at the only.
Obviously, we could spend a whole hour talking about the pictures that you did with Fred, but I want to talk about the preparation of the dances. I knew Fred Astaire real well, and I adored him, but everyone said he was this perfectionist, and everything had to be right.
And he was.
And he was. For you, you were also a workaholic too, though, right?
Yes, I always have been.
Yeah. So when you two rehearsed, it didn't matter how you just rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. How much did you rehearse, like, for one?
6 weeks.
6 weeks for each? Wow.
Each number had each number.
The feminists say a wonderful thing about Ginger. They say, you know, they make such a fuss about Fred Astaire's dancing. They said, yes, but think about Ginger Rogers. She did everything he did, but she had to do it backwards and in high heels.
When you got the script for Kitty Foyle, and they said, will you read this, did you think about it like, gee, maybe I won't do this, or I will do this, or did you have any idea that it was going to change your life in terms of...
I was looking for something to change my life. Please, Father, send me something that will take me out of this dancing thing I'm in.
And
I was
came
praying
off.
for it.
Yes.
And my prayers were answered.
You're making a mistake, you know. Am I? You're that little girl on the sleigh ride. Trouble is, you're no longer a little girl. You're a grown woman now. I'm only 24. You're 26. Don't try to get
What's
me.
extraordinary is the people that were up against you for the Academy Award that year. Were you
Kate
surprised?
Hepburn.
Kate Hepburn, Betty Davis, I think.
Betty
Wow.
Davis.
Your reaction that night when they said your name, were you...
Almost fainted. I don't remember what happened between where I was seated and when I got to the stage. It just blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
What a moment.
It was a terribly wonderful moment. Terrifying and wonderful.
Ginger, did it change the perception in terms of the next scripts that were offered you after that, or not? I mean, did you suddenly find that you were getting offered things that Davis and Hepburn and those people were being offered?
Yes, I was offered a Davis script that I wanted to do very badly.
Mm-hmm.
And when she heard that I was going to do it, she came back from her.
She got well.
That's right. She got well.
It was
Now Voyager.
Now Voyager with Paul Henry.
Splendid film.
Monkey Business.
Monkey Business.
I love that picture. You know Monkey Business with Cary Grant?
Mm-hmm.
And Marilyn Monroe was way back there somewhere.
Monkey Business was very nice. I hadn't worked with Cary for a long time. He was in between romances, you know, and So it's nice to see him and get a warm kiss from him once in a while.
It makes your day. Yeah.
Made my day.
We'll be right back.
That's fun. Lovely. Great.
Jane, when I look at you, I see sweet, nice, kindness, all those things, and the bluest eyes I have ever seen in my life. I've never seen eyes like that.
And they're all mine.
And they are yours. And I feel very bad about how you've let yourself go. When you first went to MGM, you were 14, right?
Yes, I was. I was such a movie fan.
Yeah.
That to be there, I was like June. I never spoke to anybody. And of course, they always said, stay as sweet as you are, and I did, you know. I couldn't talk to anybody.
Was Elizabeth Taylor was there, and Mickey, and...
Margaret O'Brien was there. I was the only one in my class.
O'Brien, yes.
And Elizabeth, I was such a movie fan.
Yeah.
That to be there, I was like June. I never spoke to anybody. And of course, they always said, stay as sweet as you are, and I did, you know. I couldn't talk to anybody.
Was Elizabeth Taylor was there, and Mickey, and...
Margaret O'Brien was there. I was the only one in my class.
O'Brien, yes.
And Elizabeth is younger than I am, so she was, we were all in the same room, but we were all in a different class.
What about, you worked with W.C. Fields?
Yes, my first movie.
Pardon me. Let me sing a song.
Ah, little Janie Powell will now do some vocalizing.
Jane Powell, let's go up and watch her.
Stand back. One step further, and I won't let this little pineapple open her peep. Ah, that's better. Here you are, my little kumquat.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sammy. Why don't you get in there and pick those orange kids? Pick those, hold that potato masher.
Ain't he ugly? Who is he? Who is he? Yeah. Who is he? Oh, yes, you first. Why, that's W.C. Fields.
Was he really? Oh,
go.
What would you like?
Go ahead. She's quiet. She's getting assertive. She's asking questions.
Yeah. Well, it was hard. Well, it was at a stage when he was not really himself. He was kind of falling apart.
He was drunk.
Yeah. Okay. And his face was all kind of pockmarked and kind of a very attractive picture. And, of course, not having ever acted or even had any lines, because all I did was sing, he ad-libbed. It was like working with Red Skelton, you know. You never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. But he was, they didn't know how they were going to get him on the set without his being poured into it. So, and we were on location. And he had his own truck. And he had his scotch and his glass. Well, we had a scene that they had to have him after lunch. So they left him on the truck and took the ladder away, and that's the only way they ever got a shot with him.
You went from W.C. Fields to one of the classiest men in the world, Ricardo Montalban.
I had a big crush on Ricardo. I really did. We had, Georgiana, all of us were all friends, but there was just something about Ricardo, I guess, being Latin and being as kind and just a good person.
Do you know the story of the Lena Horne story in Ricardo?
No.
You know this, Esther?
No, I don't.
He was doing Jamaica with Lena Horne on Broadway at Ossie Davis. And he was walking past Lena's dressing room, and there was a beautiful woman in there talking to Lena. And he went in, and Lena introduced him to this lady, and he was talking to this lady, then he was talking to Lena, then he was talking to this lady, then he was talking to Lena. And Lena got up and ran out, and he ran after her, and he said, why are you leaving? And she said, I'm afraid between the two of us, you'll charm yourself to death.
That's pretty cute. Just go into some kind of a fit.
Go into a fit, yes. He is that charming.
Oh, he is, and he gets so involved in everything.
Yes.
He salivates when he talks. His hands, everything is so exciting, and just
everything is exciting.
And it's important.
He makes a sunset really important.
Oh, it is.
You feel like a fool because you've never looked at it that way before.
Sure.
What?
You did a fabulous movie called Royal Wedding with Fred Astaire, but you were the third choice, right?
Because June was supposed to do it, and she was taken pregnant. And then Judy was supposed to
pregnant.
take it, and she was taken ill. And then I was taken to meet Fred Astaire. But we didn't have the, because I had never met him. I was the same again as June on the lot. I wouldn't talk to anybody because I was too shy. And I had never met him, and they called me and asked me to do it. But the dances had already been set. And we had 5, 6, 7 dances, and I never got to rehearse with him because the dances had already been set. I didn't rehearse with Fred. And so I learned them all in 3 weeks. And I basically was not a dancer. I danced, but you know, I wasn't, basically, I was a singer. And not even meeting him and not knowing him, I really didn't know what to say to him, and I didn't know what to talk about because we certainly hadn't gone to the same parties because I never went to parties. I never was with anyone. And I had heard the story was a little bit like his life with his sister, Adele, and sort of start a conversation. I said, Mr. Astaire, when was it that you and your sister stopped dancing together? And he thought a minute. He said, well, Jane, I guess it was about 1929. I said, oh, that's the year I was born. That's great. And he said, they keep getting younger and younger every year.
Every night at 7, you walk in as fresh as clover, and I begin to sigh all over again. Every night at 7, you come by like May returning, and me, oh my, I start in yearning again. You seem to bring faraway spring near me. I'm always in full bloom when you're in the room. For every night at 7, every time the same thing happens, I fall once again in love, but only with you.
Did he say anything about, you know, you're doing well, or you worked your buns off, or anything? Or?
No, he was very sweet to me, but of course, you're doing better than any of us. He was very quiet, very shy, at least he was with me. His wife was on the set a lot. I thought I'd give you that one.
I had dreamed, you know, that I really thought I was Ginger Rogers. And I thought one day maybe I would get to dance with Fred Astaire like you did. And I would see him on the lot, and he'd pay no attention to me whatsoever. And finally I was assigned to a film with him. It was called Royal Wedding, and I was so thrilled. Now I was really going to be Ginger Rogers, and it was just the end of the world for me. And I started rehearsing with him, and that's when I met Hermes Pan. And he would twirl me around the room, and I'd throw up. And I thought, isn't this amazing? I am so thrilled to be dancing with him that it's still affecting me physically. This went on for about 2 weeks. And my then husband, Richard Dick Powell, said, I think you'd better go to the doctor. You're getting very thin. So I went to the doctor, and we discovered that I was going to have a baby. So I had to step out of your shoes. And I remember I called Fred on the phone because, you know, remember at MGM, they never, ever let the person call. They would fire you and replace you immediately the way they did with Judy. And I said, please let me call Fred and tell him that I'm not going to do the movie. So I called him, and he got on the phone, and he said, hello? I said, Fred? And he said, yes? I just wanted you to be the first to know I'm going to have a baby. And he said, who is this?
We'll be right back.
When I said I did the word association game with Mickey. It's really interesting. I said, L.B. Mayer. And he said, misunderstood.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, in your book, I kind of got that you liked him, didn't you?
Oh, I was a wonderful man, and I'd never understood all the things that people were talking about, but it always reminds me of playing telephone, you know. You started on the and he whispered to someone, it comes back over here. It's not the same story.
Of course.
There may be a little truth connected with it, but I never had that problem with Mr. Mayer at all.
We each had a different papa, you know. He wanted to be our papas.
He was our papa.
And we each had a different relationship. And it was kind of wonderful because I know Junie could get anything at all if she went, Papa, man, I sing and I want to, and you don't have to, and I will, and I promise. And you got anything you wanted.
Oh, well, I got suspended. When I went up to tell him I was going to marry Richard,
yes,
he said, no, you're not going to marry Dick Powell. He's too old for you. He's a has-been, and you cannot marry him.
Yeah, he was.
And I said, well, yes, I'm going to marry him. And he said, then you are on suspension. I said, okay. And I left the office and went downstairs. And I thought, when you get married, you have to have someone give you away. And I didn't have a father. So I went upstairs again and went back into his office.
Yes.
And I walked in and I said, I know you're angry with me. I know you're going to suspend me and everything, but I don't have a father.
I don't have a dad.
And you have to have someone give you away.
I don't think she needs the
So would you do it?
No.
And he did.
Jane, Tracy and Hepburn, were you in awe of them?
I think we were all fans of theirs. And again, the sets were always closed.
Yeah. I was so fascinated seeing Hepburn walk toward her dressing room. She took a shower every single noon.
Yeah,
and all her makeup off, and all washed her hair.
Yeah.
Started all over. The makeup people must have loved her.
I'm sure they
But
did.
she had a thing about that. She said, if I don't take a shower, I ain't going back to work. And that was it. She was
I wish
really
a lot of other
an
people felt
individual.
that way.
Yes.
You got in and actually were able to watch them, though? You were stood in the corner and
From afar. Very
I
much.
would have given anything for that.
Yes. I felt like a misfit, but I think we all did when we were around them because they had such wonderful camaraderie, the two of them.
Oh, it was magic.
And you never spoke to them. You just looked at them.
Yes.
Really?
Well, it didn't. It was.
We were very insecure. We started awfully young.
Yeah.
And I realized that MGM was my college. I call it MGMU.
Yeah.
Because what happened is they get you young. I was just, out of my competition swimming, and all of a sudden, you've got to learn on the job, and I didn't ever have any training of any kind. It was just like, and they say, can you sing and dance? You say no. They say, well, you will in a few months.
Yeah. You two, at a very early time, I mean, Esther you were a businesswoman, besides being an actress.
Swimming pool business in
Ginger wanted to
1958.
produce very early, wanted to direct, was left the security of being under contract to a studio and were independent. Were men, did men have a difficult time dealing with that? Besides the fact that both of you were better athletes than any man you would ever date anyway. So.
The powder room is very helpful. In the swimming pool business, they come to your backyard and they dig a hole, right? And now it rains. It's rainy season. That hole fills up with water. And now they've got a sump hole in their backyard, and they're really mad because when people sign up for a swimming pool, they want it yesterday.
Right.
So now instead of that, they got this mud out there. So these guys are all carrying on about what are we going to do? That's the time of year we put pools in. I said, we have a kit that comes with our pools, and it has a pool cover. Why don't we put the pool cover over the hole when it says it's going to rain? There's a silence that happens, and then everybody sits, and they look like they're all getting a little sick to their stomach. I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, yes, right.
The powder room is very helpful. By the time you come back, they can put the pool cover on the pool.
And it doesn't have to be your idea.
No, then they're talking about it. And, But I think women have it better now. You don't have to play those games now.
But were men intimidated by your independence and the fact that you were such a good athlete?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, if I beat them at tennis, they'd get awfully cross with me.
Judy, tell us a story about when Jimmy Stewart called you on your answering service.
I had called him for something, and he returned my call, and no one was home. He left it on the answering machine. And he talked so slowly, he ran out. I have to call him back to find out what he wanted to say.
Just a lot of Well, what's interesting, we played a little different game, but I said if you had to go to a desert island, you could only take one piece of music. What would you take? And he said, Glenn Miller. Isn't that interesting?
Glenn Miller?
Yes.
Yes.
that he would take, you know, that he was so, I guess, strongly affected by that
Oh,
performance.
very much so. He was really Glenn Miller when he did that. Another funny thing about Wonderful Jimmy, you know, he really looked like he was playing that trombone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He practiced and he worked so hard on that. And they finally had to plug up all the holes so no sound came out.
Yeah.
Just looked like he was playing.
Oh, that's terrible.
Now, if I say, this is going to be very hard for you, because you must give me a one-word answer.
Oh, dear.
I say a name. You just give me one word.
Okay.
Otherwise, I slap your finger. Ready?
One word?
Yeah, just one word.
Try,
But that's what
Esther.
makes
It's
it
not
fun.
so difficult.
It'll be
Maybe
just,
a first.
It'll just be a visceral reaction.
It will be a
Yeah,
first.
it's all right. Ready?
Okay.
Sinatra.
The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, the pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom.
I did it.
Red Skelton.
Yeah, say, did you know the big record, though, what's on the other side is Leopold Stokowski's orchestra. They live there.
He's a comic, but he's sad.
Lana Turner.
Right now, alone. I wish
Alone?
he'd come out of her
Okay,
hiding.
one word.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay.
Jimmy Durante.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Xavier Cugat.
Spanish.
Oscar Levine.
Uptight bore.
Really?
2 words.
Oh, 2 words.
Well, how could I? Tight ass
I'll take the
bore?
last one.
That's 3.
That's 3. Victor Mature.
Oh, God, another animal.
An animal. Good. Tallulah Banks.
Did we ever have one moment alone, together alone, just you and I? No. No. Even when you remembered to kiss me, it was on cue. And then you took a bow.
Marvelous.
Great.
Marvelous. She invited Rock Hudson and me up to her apartment. And she said, I have to tell you both something. Darlings, I don't know which one I want.
Okay. Now, if I say a name and you just give me a quick reaction, okay? The one word that Esther plays so well with the one. You ready?
Yeah.
Lucy.
Laughter.
Ronald Reagan.
I wonder if I said the wrong thing. Couldn't have been more perfect.
Fighter.
Clifton Webb.
Dancer.
Really?
Interesting.
Marilyn Monroe.
To tell you you can't stay here. If those gorillas find you here, what happens to them? Nothing. They're just going to leave them alone? What's the matter with you, Benny? You can't take such a chance.
A crier.
Yes.
David Niven.
Oh. Oh, I see.
A jokester.
Mm-hmm. Margaret Sullivan.
A friend.
I know. Yeah. Now, June. Peter Law.
Fun.
Fun. Gene Kelly.
Master.
Master. Lana Turner.
Oh, my God, whatever my reputation, I don't take love lightly.
Beauty.
Claudette Colbert.
Mother.
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 Esther Williams.
Friend.
Andrew Robbins.
Idol.
Jane Powell.
Lovely friend.
Jane.
Yes.
I'm gonna play this game with you now.
All
It's
right.
simple.
Just don't think, right?
That's right. Don't think.
Don't think, just plop it
Howard Keel.
Tall.
Very good. Ann Southern.
Pies.
Kay Ballard.
When you have a twisted mind, it doesn't work.
The Italian.
Yes, I'll say it. Yeah, Mickey Rooney.
Imp.
Ginger Rogers.
Special.
Esther Williams.
Unique.
June Allyson.
Smiling face. Yes.
If you could pick your parents, in other words, if I could pick my parents, I'd say Einstein and Chris Everett. So I would be an athlete.
What an interesting pair.
And mind and
Einstein wanted Marilyn
She also
Monroe.
has a great sense of humor. Chris.
Yeah.
So if you could pick two people.
Really, I know it's going to be something that may sound funny. Does it have anything to do with the age as to who would...
No, not at all. Not at all.
As a father, I sincerely mean it, he would have to have a sense of humor, be very kind, be attractive. Would be nice if he were successful, but that's really not important. And someone that loves children, and I would say you.
Oh, hey.
I really would.
Lovely. Well, she just took my
about
father away from me. I wanted Ingrid Bergman and Burt Reynolds. Because when you said how
He really is
affectionate you are
everything.
with
Yes.
your boy.
Yes. You really are everything I think a father.
I'm blushing.
It's hard to pick a
I'm blushing.
father.
I'll be right back with my daughters. And
He likes a jitterbug.
Oh, you rascal. I have to say goodbye to you kids, but we're going to, we'll probably stay here and talk for a little while later anyway. We don't, there's nowhere to go anyway. What the hell? We'll probably send for some drinks and we'll just stay here and talk.
Why not?
I can't thank you enough for being here. And,
This was delightful.
I had the best
Great
time.
fun.
Had a really good time.
Darling. Thank you for inviting me to your
It's so
party.
nice to be invited to your parties.
It was wonderful. It was just wonderful.